All right, CNT120 Network Design Lab. We are now working on the third and final part of our Network Design Lab on the descriptions we need to do. So real quickly, scrolling through, we have made our network map in the first part, or I should say the first part we completed our network map, our network diagram, doing something like this, ISP, firewall, router, switch, access point, IP phones, workstations, okay? So we've completed that, and after we completed that, we got it roughed out. The next part of our design lab, the spreadsheet or the cost sheet, we went and looked up the pieces of equipment we need for this plan. So we did this. We looked up the switch, the router, the access point, the IP phone, the firewall, got the details, picked out the specific equipment. And now that I have those details, I went back to the map and I added those model numbers in. There's the firewall model number, the router model number, the access point model number, the switch model number, the IP phone model number. So now that my map has all the details on after picking my equipment, I now have my map done. And again, I would do the file export as JPEG, so I have that for submission to D2L. Okay, I can do that real quick. Export as JPEG. Here we go. I'll download that, save it. There we go. I then have my spreadsheet done. I can do the file download as. I can do Excel spreadsheet or PDF, whatever you prefer. I'll do PDF in this case. I'll export. So now downloaded to my machine, I actually have scroll. Here is the spreadsheet with all the details. I can submit that straight to D2L then for Design Lab. And I also have my Design Lab map, this guy right here. So I have those two pieces done. So now I'm working on the third part of my Design Lab. The third part is my description. I need to describe to my customer what's good, what's not so good, and what we might do to improve for them. Now, we're doing this for two reasons. One is I'm having you do this to try to think through what you've done so that you can kind of formulate what is good, bad, and what you might improve for a customer. But this is almost like what you have to be prepared to present this plan to a customer. You need to have this in your brain so that you can either sell them on the idea or recognize, yeah, you've asked for A, B, and C, we've done that, but really you need D and E yet that you haven't mentioned that we really should try to include. And everyone might be like, oh yeah, great, yeah, please do that. We didn't think about that. That would be great if we could. And now you're actually helping the customer, getting them a better plan. So these are things I should have in my brain when meeting with my customer. So we're going to get them down on paper so we're kind of prepared for meeting with our customer. That's what we're going to do. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my Google Drive and I'll say new Google Doc. And I'm just going to start getting my ideas down first as advantages for network design. We want this, oh my goodness, advantages for network design. And then last we want suggestions, improvements for network design. Now, I first want to get my ideas down on paper, then I can formulate it into what it's asking for. It's asking for us to write out a paragraph describing what's good, bad, and so forth, okay? But I first got to get my ideas out. So I would want to say for my customer, this plan that we're doing, we are addressing all the needs they have come up with, we have addressed. So we're addressing all their needs that they have mentioned. We are using commercial grade equipment. So they know right off the bat we're not using some weird, bargain bin piece of router and switch that might fail after a few months and it's not going to work. Now this is commercial grade gear that has warranties, that has support, that has updates, etc. And we also selected some things. If you remember, we picked out the switch. We picked out a 48-port switch that has extra ports. We have some power over Ethernet, probably more than they need. So we have set this up that this network is actually expandable at this point. They could actually add on to their network without changing any of their equipment. In addition, we could upgrade things and expand their network too. But we have addressed all their needs with commercial grade equipment, and it's expandable. So what I want to do at this point now is take those quick ideas, and I need to form them into full sentences, full thoughts for the customer. And this probably here would be maybe a paragraph of writing for what is good about this plan. I'll do the next thing. I'll do the same thing for disadvantages here. Let's brainstorm. The cost of the plan. This might be kind of pricey for the customer. You know, we're in the $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 category for a small business. That's significant money. But one of the reasons is because of this. We selected all those things for them. If we also look at our plan, look right here, we have single points of failure, meaning if this firewall dies, they're dead in the water. If this router dies, they're dead in the water. If this switch dies, they're dead in the water. So we have single points of failure in here that really should be addressed. If I look at the plan as well, there's no redundancy. There's no redundant ISP connection, there's no redundant switch, no redundant router, so there's no redundancy in here. Oh my goodness, if I can type. There's no redundancy in this plan either. That might be something that we want to suggest to them. These all might be things we want to suggest to them. So again, I take those ideas, form them into 3 or 4 good sentences describing what is not so awesome about this plan. And then last but not least, suggestions. What might we suggest to the customer to improve their plan? Well, again, these things probably cost more money, but we definitely want to include UPS units for our network devices. Mainly the router, switch, firewall kind of thing. These things right here. So at least with little power blips or little power failures, this part of my network is still functioning, especially the phones. If you have a power failure, you want your phones working. So that is something we should really be suggesting for them. We also might want to suggest, redundant ISP connection. If this business is really critical that it works 24/7, 365, again, that's a question they have to answer for us. We might want to consider a redundant ISP connection. Maybe a large bandwidth connection to one provider and a smaller bandwidth connection as a backup to a different provider. So at least they would be functional. Maybe that's something you consider. Maybe it's something you bring up to them. And also maybe some redundant network devices as well. Now, this could come in a couple different forms. In their network, we could have a router, a spare router we bought sitting on the shelf configured ready to roll. Same thing with a firewall or a switch here. I could have that extra piece of equipment bought sitting on the shelf ready to go, configured, a basic config on, that we could bring their network back online within maybe an hour of downtime, of take the old router out, put the new one in, and hook it up and make it work, instead of, well, let's go order one, hopefully it'll get here in a couple days. We might have an hour of downtime versus 4 or 5 days of downtime. So there's a couple ideas for suggestions for improvement for the customer. Again, take those ideas, work them into a couple sentences into a paragraph, and we have addressed these suggestions or improvements for the customer on the plan. Now, please do not give me a bullet list. I did that for you. You want to take this idea bullet list, form it into a couple sentences into a paragraph for the customer on what's good, what are the advantages, what's not so good, what are the disadvantages, and what would be suggestions for improving the network. And once you do that, then you have completed the third part of our network design. What you want to do at this point then is, I need to give myself a little description up here, so I'm going to do our 120 network design, and I'm just going to put out here descriptions. So there's my rough draft or my ideas. Once I form that into a couple sentences, paragraphs, then I have accomplished this part of my plan. What I can do at this point is I can do a file, download as, I can make a Microsoft Word doc, nice and simple, or I can do PDF. In this case, I'll just do PDF as example. I'll say download as PDF. It's downloaded to my machine. and now I would have that for submission to D2L. And there's my network descriptions. Again, don't turn this in. Don't turn this in. You want to have sentences in a paragraph here, not a bullet list. But there I would have my third piece of my network design that I can submit. So at this point, I'll double check here. I make sure that I have all three pieces, the network diagram, my equipment list, and my plan description justification. Take those three files over to the Dropbox here and make sure that gets to the Dropbox on D2L here before the Dropbox closes for your network design. So there's the third and final part of your network design.